Hello YouTube. In this video we're going to talk about updates and why you need them. So what are updates? Updates are patches in which the code of a program is modified to either fix an issue or to change functionality of the program. Updates can also be to add information to a program or a database. There are software bugs that are found all the time, and without software updates to patch this bug, it could potentially leave your system vulnerable to a possible exploit or even harmful behavior that could damage the system or software. Also, everything has updates these days. That is almost everything that either uses a database for active scanning or anything that uses software to run. Even firmware will require an update of some kind. An update version from 1 or from 1.0 to 1.2 or 5.2 to 5.3 or even to 5.3.1 are all considered updates. Just because the version changed doesn't really mean much in the aspect of it being as an upgrade. It is still going to be an update. What requires updates? Anything that requires drivers, which means pretty much all hardware in your system, the operating system, all firmware, an antivirus program, firewall, anti-malware, anti-spyware, and anti-adware scanners and removers. So pretty much any and all software is going to require some sort of an update. So why should I install updates? Well, first for security reasons. Not installing updates poses a massive security risk to your system and your data. There are groups that test operating systems and software all the time for any kind of possible vulnerability that they can exploit to gain access to the system, even possibly to damage the system. Firmware, which is a software installed into hardware in your TV, Blu-ray player, DVD player, computer, or server, is at risk for exploit as well. The second reason is for stability. Updates are released all the time to increase the reliability of a device or program. It is possible to purchase a TV, DVD player, Blu-ray player, computer, server, cell phone, any device that runs on firmware or drivers that may need critical updates to fix a problem that may or may not render the device unusable. Software bugs are found all the time as well, and there are updates released to fix those. So what are drivers? A driver is a piece of software that tells the operating system what a certain chunk of hardware is in the computer and how to use it. All hardware in a computer uses drivers. A lot of it even has firmware built into it or installed in it that you don't know about. Some devices have support and instructions built into the kernel of the operating system. Those are internal drivers, and most of the time you're not going to have to worry too much about updating those, as if there is a kernel update, it will be caught in the operating system updates. Everything that requires different drivers is going to require updates. When updating the drivers, you will either have to turn the computer... Let's go back on that. When updating the drivers, you will either have to turn to the computer vendor like HP or Dell, or go to the manufacturer like Nvidia, Gigabyte, ASRock, Intel, AMD, just the ones that actually build the hardware to get the correct drivers for the device. The most common drivers searched for are 3D accelerator graphics cards and printer drivers. So what is firmware? Some devices like a TV, DVD player, Blu-ray player, laptop, printer, computer, and server, as well as your cell phone, all have software that's actually installed directly into the hardware components of these devices that control the device and act as an interoperator between the hardware and the software to provide further detail and instruction on how to operate the device. Some of these devices also have the operating system installed into the ROM of the device, which the ROM is read-only media and it is part of the internal hardware. Some of these devices use flash ROM so that the firmware and operating system that controls said device can be updated if needed for various fixes and or reasons. So why update my operating system on a regular basis? For Windows, vulnerability patches, software compatibility patches, functionality bug patches, functionality hardware support patches, Linux vulnerability patches, software compatibility patches, functionality bug patches, functionality hardware support patches. You will notice that both of those lists are exactly the same. They're identical because all operating systems are going to have vulnerabilities, they're going to have software issues, they're going to have bugs, and they're going to have issues with certain hardware that's going to have to be patched. This isn't something that's related only to Windows. I know a lot of people sit there and harp about how Windows is the worst. Guess what? It happens with all of them. It doesn't matter if you're using Unix, Linux, or Windows, or even iOS. All of them have bugs that have to be fixed in updates. Why keep my operating system current? Well, it's always a good idea to keep your operating system updated to current. This also includes release numbers. So let's say like Windows 7 to Windows 10. You never want to just immediately jump to a new operating system version unless you want to deal with potential bugs and serious issues. I kid you not, give it a little bit of time. Don't just immediately upgrade to the newest operating system because there are going to be a lot of problems. Give them some time to work out a majority of the major issues. But having an updated operating system that has some issues is far better than having an operating system that is old and no longer supported. No more patches or updates. This means that whatever vulnerabilities this old operating system has will never be fixed, and the exploits to take advantage of the system will become well known. Unlike a newer version, the operating system is constantly being updated and patched. Best example of this is Ubuntu 11.04 and Ubuntu 15.10. 11.04 isn't really supported anymore, and 14.04 is the new LTS, long-term support. So 11.04 and 12.04 stand to be forgotten, and patches no longer released. Same could be said for Microsoft Windows XP, which is no longer supported, where the newer version of Windows 10 has all kinds of support and patches being released almost daily on some things. Windows XP is so old that and well known that it doesn't really take an attacker much effort at all to compromise the system to use it to their advantage. Even if the older operating system is running good on your computer, it is an extremely high security risk on the internet. So how do I update my TV or DVD player? Yeah, I know I said earlier that TVs and DVD players or Blu-ray players can run on firmware that may need to be updated. Well, the best way to know if your device has a firmware that needs to be updated is to Google the device and possibly add in firmware update in the same line. If there's an update, odds are it needs to be updated. Most manufacturers will supply both the updated firmware and the instructions to update the device. Odds are if it has a USB port, there's a high probability it's running on firmware and needs a software update. This is where having a 1 gig or smaller USB drive comes in very handy. Most of the manufacturers are going to require the USB drive to be formatted into a FAT32 file system in which you will put the update on there, and they will walk you through the instructions on doing all of that. So updates are extremely critical. They're very, very important to the system. They're very important to security, and most of all, they're very important to the stability and function of whatever the device is. This is the reason that there are constant updates being sent out on cell phone devices and everything else. I'd like to thank you for your time on this presentation, and this information is out there for absolutely everyone. And as always, watch, like, and share, and have a great day.